everyone. This is a Leadership with Heart podcast, and this is Heather Younger, your host. Employee experience is powered by emotions. Managers and or leaders within organizations get to choose which emotions they unleash from within the people they lead. Leaders, meaning supervisors or above in an organization, drive much of the positive or negative emotions by their actions or inactions, their words, or what they fail to say. When a manager chooses their words and their actions carefully, they exhibit great emotional intelligence. These managers are often thought of as leaders who care, or as I like to call them, leaders with heart. This special brand of leader drives engagement and loyalty simply by being themselves. Are these leaders perfect? Absolutely not. It is in their awareness and sharing of some of their imperfections that we realize their brilliance. In this podcast, I ask you to see yourself in the stories my guests tell about times when they were not the best versions of themselves, but how they used their hearts to guide them to a place of deeper connection with their teams and heightened leadership prowess. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. This is Heather at the Leadership with Heart podcast, and today I am super excited to have Wes Struebing on the phone. Hopefully I said that right. I'm horrible with last names. Was that right?
You nailed it. You were spot on.
Yay! I'm so glad I did that. So the reason I have him on, I don't know, it might have been a few weeks ago at least. I was scrolling through LinkedIn as I normally do, and I'm kind of keeping an eye out for stories and things, and someone who was out there in the universe posted something about a CEO, and it was just a really good message. And I think it may have been about nixing his salary in this time during COVID to make sure that he's taking care of his people. And it hit me. I was like, immediately, I said, he's got to get on my show, because it takes a lot to do that, irrespective if he's getting monies in other places. When you give up your salary, you're giving up a piece of yourself that you could ordinarily just keep. And so making that choice is so intentional. It spoke to me. So that's why you're here, Wes.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
So where are you right now in your leadership journey?
You know, I kind of have a saying that either you're green and growing or you're ripe and rotting, and there's kind of nowhere in between. So I think I'm probably green and growing as a leader, because I'm still always wanting to work at it and want to get better at it and trying to learn new stuff all the time. So I'm green and growing. That's where I am.
Oh, I love that. That's the first I've heard of that, the green and growing. And it is so true. I feel like for those who feel like they've arrived already, which, by the way, we won't ever arrive until we go to the grave. There's no arrival here, really. But I think when people who feel that way, they really are discounting the brilliance and the beauty in just being open to change and open to being better every day, just 1% better, just a teeny bit better every day.
And also being open to being wrong, which I'm open to that too.
Yeah, that's a whole nother element. You're so right. Yeah, learning. And so, because being wrong is where you end up getting all your learnings from. Like I would say that it's in the falling down where I learn the most. And I think that's where most of us are at, right?
Oh, no, I absolutely learn more from failing than I do from winning. Absolutely.
So I'm curious to know, how would people that report to you describe you as a leader? How would they say you are as a leader?
Well, that's a good question. I'd almost want to defer it to those that work for me. I think they define me as silly, painfully direct, very honest, and someone they could trust. Ooh,
I think that's kind of a cool combination, because nobody really wants to be around a whole bunch of fluff that doesn't grow them, doesn't help them see, like, correct maybe certain areas so that they can become better. And also that trust part is probably built on your honesty and your directness, because if you're not direct and you just put a whole bunch of clouds around, fog around everything else that's there, then no one's they're like, what is he talking about? But when you're direct, it's like, okay, I'm pretty clear on what he needs from me. And that clear expectations is pretty critical.
Yeah, even navigating the difficult times, like through the whole COVID crisis, I was pretty clear with my team about me not taking a salary. I was very clear with my team about what the risks could be to all of us and the enterprise, and just tell them plainly and clearly that we're trying to navigate this as best we can, and I will continue to communicate, which I do.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I think that often what organizational leaders do is they discount the intelligence of the people they brought on. So they took the time, they spent the money, they trained them to bring all these people on that are moving the train forward for the customer. And then they discount their intelligence by not being direct, by hiding things from them, by creating different words or different ways to say the things that they should just go say. And so, and then people sniff that out. And that's also, again, where that lack of trust is. in most cases. And that's again where I think your trust of your people is probably built, because you say it how it is. They're going to have a thickness of skin. We're all pretty resilient people, and hey, so I love that. Absolutely love it.
Just doing my best.
Yeah, that's all we can do.
Yeah,
that's all we can do. This is not about perfection. This is about a journey. We're all on this journey, and it'll be a lifetime journey. There's just no arrival. And some people get a little freaked out about that. It's like, yeah, there's certain things you may arrive at inside of the journey, but in the end, the journey is perpetual.
No, absolutely. And, life evolves. Things evolve. In fact, right now, more than ever, we have to evolve. So if you're not actively learning, you're going to be in big trouble.
So I'm curious to know, where does your drive to lead come from? I often find it's like a handful of reasons why people choose to lead like they do. But I'm curious to know what your drive to lead is.
It'd be weird to say I was born this way, but I always kind of feel like I was born this way. I just was always kind of this way. But I guess I've worked in a lot of work. So I worked in the family business for a long time, but for the last 22 years, I worked in another enterprise. And I looked at the way they operated and how they cared about people or didn't care about people in some cases. And some of the mistakes that people have made in organizations is that they feel like they're building things for themselves. And we don't know each other past this interview, but I can tell you that I live my life by a very simple rule, that I want to be in your life as long as I can make it better. When I can't, and I believe I can't make your life any better, I will get out. And that goes for my employees, that goes for my clients, that goes for my friends. That kind of touches every part of my life. Like, I'm here to try and make your life better. If I can't, I won't do it. I'm going to get out. And I think that is, for whatever reason, has become a kind of contagious over time and has kind of thrust me into that kind of a leadership role.
Mm. I'm curious to know, since you said you're kind of can be silly or whatever it is. What are the ways that you
silly? Ridiculous.
What do you do to reconnect with people? So there's huge projects, lots of stuff going on. Everybody's kind of crazy. What do you do to reconnect with your direct reports when that happens, and kind of make sure that you can understand each other and kind of get back to center with each other?
So I can tell you that as an organization, I have an 8 a.m. call every single morning, a Zoom call with my entire team that everyone's invited to. I also have a 5 p.m. end of the day call with all of my team. And those are a time where everyone, in a very quick and concise way, will go through what they're going to get done that day. And at the end of the day, they kind of go through what they got done. And it's done two things. First of all, it's really put me more in touch with everybody in my company. I know more about what's going on with all these people right now than I ever have as a result of that methodology. Mm. And what's even more fun is kids are invited to that meeting, right? Because right now my people are also at home with their kids and trying to teach their kids and entertain their kids at the same time. So kids and dogs and everyone's invited to the meeting. Whoever happens to drive by or wave, we'll say hi to, spouses included. But I think that is one of the ways that we've really, really kind of kept our sense of community when there isn't an office to go to.
Are they normally in the office? Because I know you said you're kind of spread about with those that are partners with you and those that are actually employees and things like that. Do you normally have an office?
Yeah, they're in office in pockets, right? So they at least get that sense of community in the pockets of offices that they're in.
Okay.
What's nice is we do have a few remote people, and those remote people now get to be part of that same call. And I think we've built more of a sense of community for them during this whole time too. And I think, I was telling, in fact, this was on a LinkedIn post yesterday, that after this is all over, I know we'll keep at least one of those calls active every single day.
Mm. I love that.
I'm not willing to give it up anymore.
Well, that's awesome to know. I mean, I always talk about this need for connection, and that employees want to be connected to the executive leaders. They want to be connected to the customers. They want to be connected to one another. They want to have a connection to the mission and kind of the vision of the organization. And the more that we can curate an experience that allows them to have those connections, the happier they're going to be. And it's not rocket science. I love the fact that you yourself even seem like you desire that connection. And now that you've had it, you're like, wow, I want to keep doing that. And you can obviously drive whether that happens or not. So I love that.
Well, I think I said too, if you know my mission is to help. That's completely my mission. So it fits directly with my mission.
I love that. Well, we want to make sure we're congruent, because when we're not, lots of things can go wrong, right?
Yeah. Well, if it's not you, it's not you. And everyone's going to know that's not you and not the way you really feel.
I love that.
Genuine works.
That's a tag, like a social media tag. Genuine works. I love that.
It does.
Okay, so I'm curious. This is that time of my show where I ask this question, which is, if you can think of a time, it helps the listeners learn more, and me too. If you could think of a time, a specific time, when you were not the best version of you. Maybe you weren't as self-aware, or you didn't want to put these practices in place. And when you weren't, and what did it look like for you to come out of that place of just not being the best version of you?
Oh, I think that everybody as they age is, I'm now in my early 50s. I hate to say that out loud for everyone to hear. I'm in my early 50s. My younger me was way more self-important than my older me is. And I think I've evolved away from that. Don't get me wrong. I still think I probably have an overwhelming sense of self-importance, but it doesn't end up affecting my leadership abilities anymore. I think the biggest change for me too was I had a tendency to want to do everything myself because I knew no one could do it as well as I could. And until I was able to let that go and help others and teach others how to do things, I couldn't be as effective as I am today. Not even close.
Do you have a specific story you'd like to share? So a memory that, like, when you say that, you think of, yep, this time I did this thing. A couple of years ago, this is what happened. That's really where the learning is, when you can get into detail of the story. That'd be awesome.
So I can tell you that early on in my career, in trying to do everything myself and also keep more of the money for myself, I was doing a lot of work for Office Depot at the time. And I was not able to keep up with the work that we were doing. It caused problems as a result, and I lost that customer. And I had never had a customer tell me, in fact, I never had anyone tell me that I was self-serving. And he told me point blank that I was self-serving. And that one, and this goes back a long time. So that was in my early 20s. That one was never erased from my mind. Never. And that was the beginning of my learning of looking at things quite a bit differently. And I think that was a point in time where I also decided that I would be a blind advocate for my customers, regardless of financial gain. So that's kind of my role today, is I believe that I'm a blind advocate for my customers, regardless of financial gain. The only time I will buck their agenda is if I feel it's going to be harmful to them as an enterprise.
It's interesting. You and I have that in common. I started off in customer experience before I moved over to the employee experience side, really as a focus, but the majority of my background was in customer experience. And I did feel that way, but I feel that way. I believe that it's important to do the right thing, even if it jeopardizes me, because it's the right thing. And even if it means I lose a lot of something, whatever that is, I just feel it deep in my core to do that. And so I would do that with customers. I will do that with employees. I promoted people who then I was laid off and they took over my role, and I don't have any, regrets over it, because I felt like that person belonged to be, deserved to be promoted, deserved to move up. And so I feel real strongly that connection with you in that regard, that it's, having that advocacy there. Things you have a successful business, and having that blind focus, that real focus on I'm here to serve, irrespective of what it means for me, it produces a lot. It really does. Lots of good gifts.
Well, I'll tell you that, and you hit the nail on the head. In fact, it's something that frustrates me to no end, that I just wish everyone would sit back and do the right thing. Just do the right thing. When in doubt, do the damn right thing, because there's no other choice.
Yeah. And it's so hard. It can be, I do it, and it's because it's my North Star. It's like inside my gut. So I don't really have a choice but to do it. But I'm not saying I'm never conflicted in some of these situations. But in the end, the side that always wins out is this. This is what would be right. And that's just the way it is. And I've had to pay the price as a result of that, but it was right. And so I could like lay down, to my deathbed today and know that I was doing the right thing in every situation. And it was how I saw it. Now I do get that, sometimes there's right and wrong, period, black and white, right and wrong. And then sometimes there's our filter that tells us things are right and wrong. And so it's all of us have our own individual filter based upon how we were brought up. It's our background. It's a journey we've led up to that point that makes us see that this is right and wrong. And maybe others may not see that. And so our filters are just different. And so maybe they make different choices. And then there are certain things that are just clearly right and wrong. And I don't care what your background is, right? And so sometimes it's harder to discern certain areas. And what I also do, another North Star for me, is trying to give others the grace and kind of a little bit of really not an excuse, but just saying, maybe it wasn't your intent to do this thing, which was the wrong thing. So let's rethink this, that going forward, you don't do this, but how can you make this good? And that's part of like my executive coaching I do. It's like, it's helping them, really think through that. So anyway, I just love that. I mean, just absolutely love that so much about you. Like you just solidified why you're right here on the show with me, because this is my show, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
My filter.
Thank you. That's very kind of you, by the way.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so I'm curious, for those who are listening right now, who could be either at a crossroads in their leadership, or might need just some extra motivation, particularly now through this COVID environment that we're in, what would be a couple pearls of wisdom you might leave them with today?
Well, I think the first one is, if you were to adopt the same thought process that I have, frankly, that, if you can make, you're in this to make someone's life better. If you don't feel like you're making life better, you need to get out. I think that would probably be my first piece of advice. That following that mantra has given me more gifts from both personally and professionally than I can ever repay. And also, I mean, it's trite too, but that either you're green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. That's the next one. You've got to continue to get better. You've got to continue to sharpen your saw. You've got to figure out new ways to do things. Because if you're not growing, you're dying.
It's true. I just recently I had my business customer fanatics, and I decided to kind of slice off the personal part of my business because it was so much becoming about my personal brand, and I didn't want that for that business. And that's the side of my business that focuses on helping organizations with listening more effectively to their employees. So it's helping them with employee engagement surveys and facilitating focus groups and culture teams and things like that. And so I decided to parse it off, and I had to think really hard about what would my personal presence look like, given the journey that I've been on and the direction I'm going. And so that's why you see this thing behind me. No one else can see it, but it says inspiring intentional leadership. And that's the thing that it boils down for me, what you just talked about, which is literally be intentional, be better. That's a call to action to do that and to be focused on that. And there's a lot of ways to do that. But everything I talk about, no matter what it is I talk about, adversity and resilience and all this stuff, it's all about being intentional. And so I think that's just an amazing message that you said. They were short and sweet, but to the point. You're either in or you're out. And what are you in for? And are you helping anybody while you're there? And if you're not, move on. It's a great message.
I guess the last one is quit being so chicken, be bold, and realize what your destiny can be. Right? Don't sit there on the sidelines. I think that I look back at my career, and I probably should have started my own company 10 years before I did. But I was too afraid about protecting my income or protecting my lifestyle or protecting, whatever I was trying to protect at the time. And I look back now, and it was a huge mistake, because I could be a lot further down my path if I only had the boldness and the guts to do it to begin with. So believe in yourself. You can do it.
I love that. Ooh, thank you. You just now Everybody that listens to me knows that I get a little geeky on this stuff. So my hair on my arms just stood up when you did that. That was awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great. I love that it was succinct, and I think that delivered a lot of great nuggets for those who are listening. So for those who are listening, if you did find really great value in my conversation with Wes, please do share this episode far and wide. And don't forget to write a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen, because remember, there are a lot of leadership podcasts out there, and there's an algorithm, and the more reviews there are, the more it goes to the top of the heap, and that way people can actually hear interviews like this. So if you're listening, please do that. And thank you again, Wes. This has been tremendous. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Support my friend Heather.
Thanks all.
Yep,
thanks for joining the Leadership with Heart podcast, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. You can grab the show notes by visiting customerfanatics.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter.